The latest polling suggests that two of the initiatives are going to have a harder chance of passing, and that's the one to repeal the Climate Commitment Act, I-2117, and it's the initiative to repeal the capital gains tax. So I'm going to vote yes on both of those. But look, one of the arguments I think that can appeal to someone who's undecided. First of all, the way the initiative, the ballot language is written is just so confusing, so that doesn't help either. But I think this argument for people who really do, like, climate is one of their big issues, is to talk to them about the things the Climate Commitment Act is funding that actually don't help the climate at all, or do very little to help the climate when they could be invested in other places. And why, if you actually care about the environment, are you okay with that? There's a really good example of this today. This is from The Olympian. First of its kind electric vehicle charger pilot program coming to Tumwater. So this has to do with it's kind of ugly looking. Gosh, that thing's hideous. A solar powered EV charger. So, of course, you see the regular EV chargers. Well, this one's even more woke, climate friendly, because it gets powered by the sun. Now, I'm sure you thought exactly what I thought initially, which is, well, I wish there were more sun to power it. I mean, first of all, we know that these things are very underutilized, especially in public spaces. We'll get to more of that in a moment. But the reality is that Washington State is a very, very, very bad state for solar power. So just how big of a waste of money are these things? Well, our friend Todd Myers with the Washington Policy Center joins us to discuss. Todd Myers, welcome back to Undivided.
Always nice to chat with you.
Oh, I'm getting worried about the initiative to repeal the CCA. I'm worried, I guess. So the polling has generally suggested that one's kind of like iffy about whether it'll pass. How do you feel?
It's really hard to tell. We've done this twice before in 2016 and 2018. And somebody who was working on the 2018 campaign to beat the carbon tax that time said, "Hey, how do you feel?" And I said, "Well, these are always iffy." And a week before that one in 2018, we thought the carbon tax was going to pass, and then it lost 57-43. He said, "Oh, yeah, that's right." So it's really hard to tell. There's going to be an onslaught in the last couple of weeks. Ballots are just dropping. So all you can do is keep plugging away.
Yeah, there's like 20 million spent to defeat it. If you compare that to the money spent in favor of it, I mean, there's a lot of misinformation out there. What do you think is some of the biggest misinformation being peddled against the initiative?
Well, there's a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
there's now I got in my mailbox one that says that we'll have dirty water. There's literally not one dime spent on clean water issues. So that one is just wholly made up. The other one that I think is just bizarre to me is a claim that has been made by Rachel Smith, who's the head of the Seattle Chamber of Commerce, by Jay Inslee and others, that if we repeal the CO2 tax, gas prices might not go down. Well, that's absurd on its face, obviously, but we know it's a lie because BP, which actually is funding the campaign to keep the carbon tax, has lowered its prices. So last year, the tax was about $60 per metric ton. Now it's about $30 per metric ton, and that translates into gas prices. Well, BP has, and I have the invoices that show this, they have lowered their prices as the tax has gone down, which means if the tax goes to zero, they will lower their prices. So it's bizarre that BP is funding a campaign whose message is prices won't go down as they are lowering their prices. And it's bizarre for, the head of the Seattle Chamber of Commerce to make this claim. So I offered her a bet. I said, look, let's bet if 2117 passes, I bet that prices will go down. Not surprisingly, she ducked. I bet to charity, not to myself, to charity. She doesn't want to bet because she knows I'm right, but they keep saying, and I think it's embarrassing to them.
Yeah, what's the deal with BP? That one confuses me. All the other people who are trying to defeat the initiative make sense. I don't understand, I guess, why BP wouldn't want to get rid of the carbon auctions.
I think BP, in talking with folks I know at BP over the years, not just recently, but over the years, They're a European company and they are very used to this kind of system, these regulations working in California. So they feel like they have a business strategy that can make it work for them. So it's about business. They think that they have adjusted to it and then they can make money from it. So that's why they're doing it. Another thing, it was very funny in the Seattle Times editorial board, Rachel Smith said that BP's doing this because it's the right thing to do. Come on, that's absurd. I'm a very pro-business guy. I'm a very free market guy. They're not doing it out of the goodness of their heart. They're doing it for business reasons.
Yeah, businesses are about profit, and you don't become a major corporation like BP without having your eye first and foremost on the dollar. I think one of the things that concerns me is the way the ballot initiatives are written and the way that they're appearing on the ballot. This 2117 has been pushed as like stop the hidden gas tax, and that's one of the arguments against the CCA is the way that Inslee lied about the fact that it would increase gas prices and it's hurting people financially. But if you read the ballot initiative, it's like, doesn't say anything about gas prices, obviously. And it's like, if you vote yes on this, like babies will die and salmon will go extinct and we won't be able to teach kids. It's like, what? It's so bad.
Yeah, the system has been, I mean, rigged, obviously, to that where they write the ballot title in a way that they want. That's not the only, way that they are using taxpayer-funded systems to campaign for this. I have a piece coming up in National Review over the weekend where I call it the Climate Corruption Act because of all of the money that is being spent on campaigning, using taxpayer money to campaign to keep the CO2 tax. And it's remarkable. I've never seen anything quite like it. So it's tough, but people need to keep their chin up and keep working. We got a long way till election day.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, it's like all the energy companies sending out the credits saying over and over, "Oh, Climate Commitment Act." The Climate Commitment Act on the back of buses, and all these city councils recommending vote no on 2117. So you have an interesting example because one of the things I've said, and you obviously have said this many times, like we care about the environment, but what we don't care about are policies that promise a lot, do nothing at the expense of the working class. So there's this in Tumwater and Bellingham, when we talk about kind of where the CCA money is going or where government money is going for like climate friendly things. So they have a very interesting spend of some of this taxpayer money that doesn't make an awful lot of sense. Can you explain?
Yeah. So Tumwater announced earlier this year, they're very excited that they were putting in a solar powered EV charging station. Now, EV charging stations in and of themselves are sort of a problem because primarily they go to the wealthy. The other thing is that EVs, for all of their problems, their range is actually getting much better, and people don't really charge much outside the home. They charge primarily in the home. So EV charging stations out in public are basically a luxury. They're not a requirement. It's not like you're going to be not be able to get home. It's just nice. But they wanted to do it one step better and do solar power. Well, this struck me as absurd because Washington State, Western Washington, according to the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, is literally the worst place in the lower 48 outside of Alaska for solar. So they were claiming, oh, we can do this, 300 miles of charging a day. And I was like, where did you get these numbers? And what was so funny is that what they claimed, this 300 miles worth of charge per day, was beyond even what the company was saying, that there was the maximum. Well, in Tumwater, it's going to be much worse than that. The other thing is that these systems cost about 5 times as much as grid-connected EV chargers. And grid-connected EV chargers, there's no limit, right? You can charge as much as you want all day. It's not limited by how much solar energy you get. So it is a remarkable waste of energy.
So just so I'm understanding, so the solar powered EV chargers cost 5 times more, and they'll be significantly less useful.
Yeah, so like I said, they claim 300 miles. The company claims up to 260 miles, but that of course doesn't only is in Phoenix in the middle of summer. So I used a calculator put out by the National Renewable Energy Laboratory that says that in winter in Tumwater, it will provide about 27 miles worth of charge per day. So less than a tenth of what the city's sustainability manager claimed to the city council. So she goes before the city council, says, hey, this is what it's going to provide, when the reality is, at least in winter, 1/10 of what she claimed. I also talked to another city facilities director about them because Tumwater has just put them in, and other cities have had them for a while. So I said, "How are they doing?" And they sent me the data, and I said, "Why did you do this? Why did you choose this?" And their answer was, "Well, we just thought it would be kind of cool to have some of the energy come from the sun rather than the grid."
Yeah, well, that's what it is. It's feel good. It's feel good policy. And is this CCA funds or is general funds?
It is, I think it is CCA funds. They're sort of all mixed. The
Yeah.
state, right, has a number of different things that subsidizes. So in Bellingham, they cost about 75,000. In Tumwater, they used $100,000 of state and local money. These will never pay themselves back, and the people who are profiting from them, or benefiting, I should say, not profiting, but benefiting from them, are wealthy EV owners. The other thing that just always bothers me about these sorts of things is that we constantly hear this is a crisis. It's a climate crisis. The governor likes to say it's an existential crisis, as if all of us are going to die. If you really believed that, you would make sure that every dollar was spent well, rather than just say, "Well, we spent 5 times as much on something that does, much less because it feels good." And they openly admit that. It's wild.
Yeah, it's about feeling good, and it is about the money. It's a Climate Corruption Act. I totally agree with you. You look at the same thing with the homelessness crisis, where they're like, "Oh, we care so much," and it's like, okay, but you've spent billions, and now there's more homeless people on the streets than ever before. How much can you actually care? Todd Myers, thanks for finding these gems as always. And man, I hope that people can see through the $20 million being spent to keep the CCA.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me on.
Wild stuff. And it's similar to the story we did on the city of Issaquah that took a position, their city council vote no on 2117, which was just wildly inappropriate, but because they get funding from the CCA for things like EV chargers at the park. Who's plugging in their Tesla at the park? That's your priority, is for probably semi-wealthy people, or definitely upper middle class, to be able to go to the park and charge their Tesla for a little bit, as opposed to families that are struggling to pay for gas and groceries. Oh my gosh, it drives me nuts.